go against.
It is certainly an uphill battle, but we know when it gets to single elimination, anything can happen. And here we go, top 8 underway. Pablo Meza going first.
Yep, here we go. I am so excited for this. Pablo starting off our match here with a Battle VIP pass. Pablo, I'm sure, is so comfortable with this deck and probably with this matchup, or maybe didn't even bring too much to the table with this matchup, didn't even really practice it that much because it seems pretty point blank on paper.
Yeah, it's actually pretty funny. As I was walking back to the backstage area after checking the standings, seeing who the top 8 players were going to be, I walked past Pablo and I mentioned, "Congratulations, by the way." And he said, "Congratulations for what?" I said, "You made top 8. He said, "I made top 8. He was not expecting to make top 8 because he was at 34 match points, did not get to the 35 that we thought was going to be required, but just the way things worked out, it turns out every single player with 34 match points ended up making it into the top 8. There was no bubble.
Awesome.
No one at 34 points was on the outside looking in, just because of some natural ties on those win and in rounds. It's just how it works out sometimes.
Wow, so Pablo, I'm sure, super happy to be in this position playing in the top 8, that is for sure. And we are seeing that Radiant Greninja and the Comfey. Of course, this is such a familiar deck that we've seen throughout the weekend. The Lost Box, Lost Zone engine that we're going to see from those Comfeys, Radiant Greninja for that draw support as well. As we said, though, the MVP, at least in this matchup, it's going to take some time. But that amazing Rayquaza, which is actually being started here on Pablo's side.
Yep, that amazing burst attack. It has a steep cost, needing a lightning, a grass, and a fighting energy. And you have to discard all of the energies when you attack. But for each different type of basic energy you discard, you deal 80 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So if you discard 3 different types of energy, that's 240. But if you stack extra energies on to that Pokemon, you can deal 320, even 400 damage if you have 5 different types of energy onto the Rayquaza when you attack with it.
Yep, a Pokemon that really only works, I think, in this deck, honestly.
Alongside Mirage Gate.
Yes, exactly. Alongside Mirage Gate, so much energy it costs and different types of energy as well. But we are going to see that Cramorant come down, 1 card right now in the Lost Zone for Pablo. And we're over back to Grant Shen. I'm sure Grant Shen realizing exactly what he's playing against at this point.
Yes.
And that Rayquaza is already on the board, so Grant has that in mind here. Grant just wants to be getting energy accelerated this turn with that Arceus V. That is so important for an initial turn. And I think he's in a great position to be able to do that with his hand, I believe.
Playing the Ultra Ball, going to search the deck. We do see the Duraludon V being benched and actually a second Arceus V being grabbed. That might be indicative of no double turbo energy in this opening hand, meaning that there won't be a Trinity charge to load up this Duraludon V.
I thought I saw one, but I guess my eyes deceived me. That would be a difficult situation to be in, and you want to make sure you get as many Pokemon down to kind of recover from that for sure. But really, the strategy of Duraludon is send up a very beefy Pokemon, 330 HP. You also have the potential to heal with this deck as well. As you mentioned before, the Single Strike Mustard chip can allow you to bring out a VMAX straight onto your bench, which is great as well. Oh, here we go. There was a double turbo.
Yep, sure
nice
enough.
little
There
surprise. Very nice. Grant Shen coming out here with a great start. So we are going to see that Arceus V use the Trinity charge, get all of the required energy onto that Duraludon V on the bench. And we are over to Pablo.
Concealed cards to start the turn, discarding a Psychic, drawing 2 more. Pablo did not have the best turn 1, only 1 card in the Lost Zone. That means it's pretty much impossible for us to see 7 cards at the Lost Zone. It is technically possible, but it's going to be really difficult to pull off, especially with Pablo's hand not looking the strongest just yet.
Yeah, really Grant needs to rely heavily on Pablo not getting the cards needed, and there could be some potential plays for disruption with Marnie's in the deck for Grant Shen as well. But yeah, Pablo looking like he's off to a little bit of a slower start here. 2 cards now in the Lost Zone, going back into the deck with a Quick Ball, discarding an energy. That's 3 energies now in the discard pile as well. It's so important to keep track of all of your energies, especially in this deck where you play so many different Pokemon and different energy requirements, but it plays a lot of basic energy in this deck, Chip.
Debating which basic to grab, was going between the Comfey and the Oranguru. Looks like Comfey will be the grab, ultimately. Wanting to chain together these flower selectings as much as possible, fuel that Lost Zone, and try to get to those key numbers. 4 in the Lost Zone for Cramorant, 7 for Mirage Gate, and eventually 10 for you to be able to utilize Sableye. Though Sableye is really not the best in this matchup.
Yeah, but really what Pablo needs to be doing is getting as much damage on the field as soon as possible. And that is what hopefully we're going to see play out in the next few turns. But first, we're going to see an escape rope.
Kind of a tough call for Grant. You don't really want your Duraludon to take damage, so you don't want to promote that off of the escape rope. But if you send up this Arceus V, which is what Grant was kind of forced to do, you're now going to have to find a switch card if you want to pull off an attack this turn.
Yeah, that is one aspect of the Duraludon deck struggling is pivot options. They're definitely slim in this deck. Pablo now has 3 cards in the Lost Zone, that training court hitting there as well. A manual attachment to the Rayquaza, and we are back over to Grant.
This is not a great hand from Pablo. It looks like 3 Mirage Gate in the hand, which that would be
my
really
gosh.
good if we were looking at like turn 4 or 5,
Yeah.
but you don't really want to see all of those Mirage Gates in your hand on turn 2.
Yeah, pretty much just clogging up the hands because they are not able to be used until you have 7 in the Lost Zone. So now it's over to Grand Shen to develop his board state even more. Of course, that Arceus V is still in the active, so in order to do something with these other Pokemon on the bench, we are going to have to see that pivot option as well. I do see a switch in the deck there, so there's pivots. There's also an escape rope here as well. And we're seeing what is the Starbirth ability V-Star power here from Grant. Flipping over that token that you can only use once per game to search your deck for any 2 cards. Such a powerful ability to be using, especially in this deck.
And Grant has chosen to grab Boss's Orders off of this Starbirth, going to target down this Rayquaza. It was already getting a little scary with a bunch of energy on it. And this is what I'm talking about, man. It doesn't matter what the matchup percentages are on paper. When you get into these single elimination situations, anything can happen, and Grant is getting off to a really excellent start in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Here we go. That is awesome to see here. We're going to see that knockout there, and then of course the Trinia Nova allowing you to charge up your Pokemon even more with those energy cards from the deck. So that's definitely a strong position for Grant to be in. Some great selections off of that Starbirth, utilizing everything. And then Pablo's left with this horrible hand still. Let's see if we can see some flower selectings that might be able to change things up. 4 cards in the Lost Zone now.
Yep, looks like we're up to 4-1 Comfey going down. Still all those Mirage Gates, still no access to Colress. Does have Raihan though, and that is going to be the supporter. Can pull any of these energy from the discard pile, attach them to the whichever Pokemon he wants. Looks like it will be onto the active Comfey, and now gets any 1 card out of the deck and puts it into his hand.
Yeah, Pablo's half of a Starbirth in a way, I suppose, but also some energy acceleration from the discard there too. So let's see, this is a very important decision here on Pablo's side. Looks like opting to go for the escape rope here.
I think Pablo just wants to get more cards in the Lost Zone here, get into the Comfey, use the flower selecting, maybe use the rope to get some damage into play with the Cramorant. There is also another Comfey, so we could see 3 Comfeys still utilized this turn.
Yeah, just grinding through this deck for sure. Cramorant has now been unlocked, but we need to get to those other options from the Lost Zone as well. What is this flower selecting?
Yeah.
Ordinary Rod hitting the Lost Zone here.
It was Ordinary Rod or Rayquaza, so a tough call. You really want Rod to put those energies back, but you really need Rayquaza as it's your main attacker in this matchup.
Yeah, that is definitely a difficult decision. We are going to see the escape rope, Grant choosing who to promote first, and then Pablo switching up that Cramorant into the active position as well. And then we're just going to see that Spit innocently come down onto the field, and we are back over to Grant, starting off with a Crystal Cave, which is going to be able to heal your metal Pokemon there, or sorry,
Metal or Dragon.
Yes, metal or Dragon, so it's either or. In the field. So that's great for Grant to have down as well, just taking those damage counters off. And then we're going to see the knockout here on that Cramorant.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons why in the past for other Lost Box variant, Duraludon has always been such a tough matchup because it has a lot of HP and it can heal a bunch of the damage that you put into play. But for Pablo's specific list with the Rayquaza, with the ability to reach for a 1-hit knockout, it swings the matchup back into the Lost Box deck's favor.
Yeah, absolutely. But you do have to get there and definitely get set up. And Pablo is just having a very difficult time, a slow time being able to do that. But we do see the escape rope switching back into a Comfy. More flower selectings happening here. Lost Zone is now at 7 cards.
Yep.
So here we go, unlocked the Mirage Gate at least, and we already know like 3 of them are in the hand. So Colress's Experiment going to keep 3 of these cards in the hand, and 2 are going to go into the Lost Zone as well, stacking that up. And that's 2 energies, so many in the discard pile as well already.
Yeah, energy is honestly one of the worst things to see off of Colress's Experiment. You're going to see them naturally just because you play so many, but you want them to be in your deck so that you can utilize Mirage Gate. You definitely don't want to have to Lost Zone too many of them. And at least if they're in your discard pile, you can use something like Energy Recycler or Ordinary Rod to bring them back. But for now, they're just going to be locked into Pablo's hand.
Yeah, you can utilize a Rangaroo to be able to send him back into your deck, but a Rangaroo's not on the board state currently for Pablo. We're going to see another escape rope. I feel like this is the 3rd escape rope now we've seen from Pablo, so burning through this.
And this is maybe a little risky, potentially, for Grant choosing to send up the Duraludon. There is definitely a world here where Pablo can get the knockout on this active since Grant has chosen to send it back up off of this last escape rope.
Oh my gosh, maybe thinking, oh, there's nothing happening here. Uh-oh, there's a Rayquaza down on the bench now.
Yeah, maybe thinking that you just couldn't, it wasn't likely for it to happen. Pablo's got a lot of energy in the discard pile, 1 or 2 in the Lost Zone as well, but
anything's possible with Lost Box decks, that's for sure, and Mirage Gate, really.
Truly, yeah. So let's see how Pablo wants to navigate this. Does bench that Rayquaza. The question, I guess, is how many energy and how many energy of different types are available in the deck currently?
Well, we do see that Ordinary Rod, which is going to allow Pablo to shuffle Pokemon and energy cards, 2 of each, if you so choose, back into your deck. So that's at least going to be 2 going back into the deck.
So with the 80 damage that is currently on Duraludon, it has 250 remaining HP. So Pablo only needs 3 energy on the Rayquaza to get to 240, and then Galarian Zigzagoon could get that last 10 damage. So there's a route there for Pablo. Also could just overload the Rayquaza and go with 4 energy if he wants to. Maybe wants to save the Zigzagoon, but
yeah, Zigzagoon's already
I already see it there.
Yeah, so that might be the strategy here because then you save some resources down the line as well. That would be a spectacular thing to see on the stream here. I'll tell you what, Chip. We might see the pop-off here.
Yeah.
Let's see. And Grant Shen is going to be in a tough spot after that. But here we go. Mirage Gate coming down, attaching that grass onto the Rayquaza and to the active Comfy, a metal energy to be able to retreat out of it. So pivot option is there. Yep,
Pablo's got it all set up. He can retreat into Rayquaza, throw down that Zigzagoon,
and
take 3 prize cards. And all of a sudden, where Grant has been ahead so far. He's up 4 prizes to 6. Pablo is going to take the lead in this spot, going down to just 3 prize cards remaining from 1 attack.
Here we go. That Duraludon VMAX going into the discard pile. Such a beefy 330 HP Pokemon that Grant promoted as well, being taken out. And that is tough to see on Grant's end. So Pablo's going to be able to take 3 prize cards off of that VMAX Pokemon. And we are over to Grant's side here, trying to reestablish this board now that that Duraludon is out of play.
And this is really one of Grant's best hopes in this matchup, is utilizing Marnie. Lost Box does not like to see Marnie being played, and especially the Rayquaza version of Lost Box, because you need to amass such a large hand size. You have such a large amount of different combos that you need to pull off. So Grant utilizing this Marnie here is a good option. We also do need to remember Grant did prize the other Duraludon V.
Very true.
So if he wanted to get another VMAX into play, it's going to have to be through something like the single strike mustard. But in this spot with 2 Arceus already up and running, I'm kind of feeling like it doesn't seem like Grant wants to get another Duraludon set up.
Yeah, that is a potential for sure, but one is being searched out right now from the Evolution Incense, so at least thinning it out of the deck. At this point in time, the single strike mustard actually is in the hand, but you have to dwindle your hand down to nothing else being there besides the single strike mustard. So that's a huge relevant part of the card here.
Yeah, would just be prepping for next turn's. Already played the Marnie here, but he's got Quick Ball, Ultra Ball in hand, so it's pretty likely that he'll be able to pull off a Mustard. And maybe if he doesn't want to Oh, are we seeing a concession here, potentially, from Pablo? I think Pablo saw that his hand was not great off the Marnie and maybe just decided to concede here. You can see him shaking his head.
What? The Marnie takes down that game? Tiff, is that what we just saw play out in front of our eyes? Grant Shen is going to take that first game here with a Marnie card, Chip.
Yeah, Pablo did not like how long that was taking, and worth noting, many times in top 8, we get 75 minutes, but for this tournament, top 8 and top 4 will be 60 minutes best of 3. So Pablo, knowing that he's got a little bit more time than normal in Swiss, but still wants to make sure there's plenty of time for a full 3 games to play out. We'll have to get confirmation for sure, but yeah, it's definitely looking like Grant was indeed the winner there. Pablo deciding to concede.
Yeah, you also have to factor in that Pablo had so many essential cards in the hand, and then of course with Marnie, your hand gets shuffled and put to the bottom of your deck. So even with things like flower selecting, those cards that you had in hand are not going to be available for to you to pick out of the deck unless there's some way you can shuffle your deck again. And I don't think there's anything in Pablo's hand to really be able to recover from that board. Say, you know, we never know how it would play out if both of these players had continued playing, but Pablo is hoping to get a much better start going into this game too.
Yeah, Pablo knows that this is a solid matchup for him, but just because the matchup is good, you know, I mean, let's say it's a 70-30 matchup for Lost Box.
Yeah.
There's a chance that Grant could get a 30% to go his favor 2 times in a best of 3. Like, there is a chance for that to happen. And that's a good start for Grant as well, getting the victory here in game number 1. A little update we can share from our other top 8 games. It does look like Makani Tran is up a game on Ryan Harris.
Right.
So Makani with his Arceus Toolbox deck already up 1 game. I have to imagine Flying Pikachu VMAX has been a pretty important part of that matchup.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And I know that's a deck that you really enjoy as well, Chip. So it's great to see Makani succeeding so far, but we never know how things are going to go in this top 8 round for these players. So our players here shuffling up and going into game 2. What do you think is something that can really change the pace here? I know so many times, Chip, we have seen Duraludon also get started very, very poorly. So there is a lot of potential for that on Grant's side of things. It's very rare, I feel like, you see Lost Box kind of fall to that same fate, just because there's so many options in Lost Box to go through your deck, collect your cards, and start getting off early damage. But Pablo just couldn't make things happen in the last game. So do you think this is really going to come down to just initial setup, Chip?
Yeah, an initial setup is definitely a big part, and we saw that in this last game where Pablo did not have a great initial setup, and that's part of the reason why he lost game 1, where or decided to concede game 1 at least. He wants to save as much time as possible. So if Grant can get up and running pretty quickly, can get the turn 2 Arceus, can get the turn 2 Trinity Nova, he'll be in a pretty decent spot.
Wow. Look at those prize cards, Chip. We see the Rayquaza and the Zigzagoon, 2 cards that were so essential in the last game for Pablo. Also a Cramorant, a Colress as well, a Scoop Up Net, and the Raikou there. So all cards that are kind of struggle busts for Pablo to have prize. There's ways around these things, but it's just that much more difficult to have them stuck in the prize cards.
Yeah, definitely annoying. Pablo does have a second copy of Rayquaza, so that is
saw 2 of them last game,
good. Yep, so does have the second one of those, but a notable difference from Pablo's list compared to a lot of Lost Box players. He does not play Hisuian Heavy Ball, so there's not going to be an option to find any of those Pokemon, mainly being that Galarian, Zigzagoon, or the Rayquaza, I feel like, are the 2 big ones there to see in the prizes.
Yep, so Pablo's just going to have to take some knockouts first and get into those prize cards to have access to those. Grant Shen still shuffling up here, I believe had a mulligan.
Yeah.
So if that is the case, Pablo will get to draw, 2 mulligans here.
Yep.
Pablo's going to get to draw 2 additional cards in this matchup. And that is going to be essential for this initial setup, as you were talking about, Chip. Grant is currently, not purposely, of course, you do need to have a basic Pokemon in your starting hand to be able to start the game, but he's giving more and more outs to Pablo, getting all of these mulligans with this Duraludon deck.
The more cards you get to see in your opening hand as a Lost Box player, the higher chance to see Battle VIP Pass. So Pablo will happily take these 2 mulligan cards.
All right, here we go. Here's the prize cards as well for Grant Shen. 2 Arc Vs in the prize cards, as well as a Raihan Crystal Cave, a Metal Energy, and an Ultra Ball.
Yeah, 2 Arceus could be a little awkward. A lot of times with Arceus Duraludon, you really only want 1 Arceus V-Star to ever be put in play. So Prizing 2 is not the end of the world. It's just about if you can find the one. And it's a little unfortunate as well because Grant did start the Duraludon V. The main reason you only play 2 copies of Duraludon V is because you don't want to start with it. You want to increase your chances to start with Arceus V.
Exactly, but 2 of them being in the prize cards definitely puts you in a sticky situation, that is for sure, especially after 2 mulligans as well, giving Pablo those extra cards in hand. And Pablo is going to be starting off our Masters Top 8 streamed match here, at least our second game in this match. Taking note of prize cards, I'm sure, after doing a deck search with this Battle VIP pass. We already see the Comfey and that Radiant Greninja, very familiar picks out of the deck, coming onto the bench for Pablo. And we're going to see a quick ball discarding that Manaphy and going back into the deck to draw out another Comfey.
Yeah, Manaphy is always a funny card to see hit the discard pile because it is so vital in the matches that you need it, and then so useless in the matches that you don't. So Pablo is pretty happy to see in this matchup he's got the Manaphy in the opening hand alongside Quick Ball, can pretty happily just throw that away and go fetch out another Comfey to get the flower selectings rolling.
You are not going to be seeing bench damage here that Manaphy is built for to protect here. So let's see if Pablo has a better hand here. Starting hand, I see 2 ordinary rods. There's an energy at least to discard to the concealed cards, draw 2 more cards from this Radiant Greninja. I do see, I think it was 2 Mirage Gates as well. Scoop up net to get that Pokemon out of the active back into a Comfey. Raikou at least is coming back to the hand.
Yeah, it does have to choose between Lost Zoning and Energy or another Comfey. It looks like the 3rd Comfey will hit that Lost Zone, attach and retreat into this next Comfey, get a couple more cards. Ooh, I think I see a Colress. Does mean you have to lose an energy, but Colress is definitely one of the most valuable cards in this entire deck.
It's definitely one you want to keep, especially since there's already one in the prize cards as well for Pablo. So we have 2 cards now in the Lost Zone for Pablo, trying to really pop off here and get as many in there as possible to start getting this damage down, especially if Grant doesn't have the best start. Pablo can just capitalize on getting as many damage counters down with his Pokemon and taking these knockouts and just leading in prizes. Oranguru is going to be drawn out of the deck with Quick Ball.
And I love this decision from Pablo. Get down the Oranguru, use that Primate Wisdom, and place Colress's Experiment on top. One of Grant's best strategies in this matchup that is unfavorable for him, like we saw in this last game, was to use Marnie and try to leave Pablo with a bad hand. Pablo can mitigate that as much as possible by prepping that top card of the deck with the Colress. So even if he does get Marnied, he'll draw into that piece. And worst case scenario, he just top decks it for turn next turn.
Yeah, that is very true, Tip. So we are over here on Grant Shen's side now. Let's see how this starting turn starts out for Grant. We are going to start with Grant's own Colress's Experiment. This is a card that's been tacked into Duraludon because it just makes sense. It allows you to get some draw support, which is something Duraludon was heavily lacking before this card was tacked into the deck.
And it's a deck that you also have cards you don't mind just thinning out, getting rid of, usually extra setup pieces like multiple Arceus, multiple Quick Balls and stuff, and it just helps you see more cards in the early game. So there's cards you don't mind Lost Zoning. I will say, though, it's probably not the best to Lost Zone a Colress and a Training Court, so no easy decisions for Grant Shen here in this first one.
Yeah, but there are still plenty of cards to be played from the hand for Grant. We do see a Quick Ball here. Oh, actually 2 Quick Balls. So one is going to be played discarding a Metal Energy from the hand here to search out another Pokemon from the deck. Of course, we are going to see that Arceus V, which is a pivotal part of Grant's strategy here to get those energy out on the field onto this Duraludon, or even the Arc V as well.
It did have the double turbo in hand, I think, but I'm not sure if there was a switch card. This deck does normally only play a few switching cards, and your main way to find them is by using Starbirth, which obviously Grant is going to be unable to do this turn.
Yeah, those switch cards are for sure slim in this deck, so you either just hard draw into them or have some way to get them. And if there's no pivot option, that Duraludon V is going to be left in the active position to just take some damage, which is never a place you want to be in, and probably why Grant is benching another Duraludon V, because if Pablo starts chipping away at this Duraludon V in the active position, it's going to make for a really easy cleanup on the back end for Pablo.
So this is looking okay for Grant. It's got the Arceus in hand, we know. I did see both a double turbo energy and a basic energy in this hand as well. And there's also a Marnie for the next turn. So we've got some pretty good options from his side of the field. Won't get off the Trinity charge, but I don't think you can be too upset with this first turn.
Yep, at least you have your basics down here for Grant, and we're back over to Pablo's side of the field. Let's see what he's able to set up here, and a Colress's experiment is a great way to start this. Oh no, look at those energies,
So
Chip.
many energies and a scoop up net as well. I don't think you mind losing the Sableye. The question is, what's more valuable? Is it a scoop up net or one of these 3 different types of energy?
Yeah, Pablo's going to have to pay very close attention to all of the energy placements within this deck. 2 are now in the lost zone, never to be retrieved. Of course, there are ways to get energies out of the discard pile, but we are headed into a flower selecting here, a scoop up net and another energy hitting the lost zone for Pablo.
I mean, you play so many, you expect to have to lost zone some, but this early in the game, having to lost zone 3 is going to make things definitely awkward.
Yeah, that's a much easier decision there for Pablo, putting that Battle VIP pass into the lost zone and choosing the Comfy. Instead, that's a much easier than energies, that's for sure, Chip. So Comfy's going to hit the bench here. Lots of pivoting options for Pablo in the hand still.
Just 1 card away from getting to the 7 needed for Mirage Gate. So Escape Rope plus 1 more flower selecting should let him get there. We can see Mirage Gate being played, and it looks like Raikou might be the first attacker this time.
Ooh, I like it. Raikou coming down here from Pablo. We'll see what happens. Lost Zone has been unlocked here for the Mirage Gate, and there's plenty of cards in hand as well for Pablo. First, we're going to see a Primate Wisdom, putting 1 card from hand to the top, and then we're going to see that Mirage Gate. So that card that went to the top from hand is going to be shuffled back, and then 2 different types of energy are going to be placed on your field in any way you want, but of course, that Raikou is going to be our attacker for this turn.
Super smart energy management from Pablo. He knew he only had 3 energy left in the deck. It was a metal energy, a fighting energy, and a psychic energy. And Raikou doesn't need 2 of those 3 types. Raikou needs a lightning, a metal, and a grass. So he used Primate Wisdom, put the metal back on top, and then utilized the Mirage Gate so that he could get the proper energies, using now the Training Court to get another energy. Scoop Up Net gets rid of that Comfy, can put it back down, but now Amazing Shot is going to start to spread some damage.
Yep, and that is exactly what you want to see from Pablo's point of view, those damage counters coming down on Grant Shen's side here. That is exactly a great place to be in, and Grant now has to respond, not having done much because of that slowish start here from Grant, but at least we're going to get to the evolution into the Duraludon VMAX. It is now a beefy boy here with 330 HP. Arc V still is not a V-Star, and there's no access to that V-Star power just yet. First, we're going to see a Marnie here from Grant Shen, so all of those cards that were in hand for Pablo are going back to the bottom of the deck. Pablo's going to draw 4, and Grant Shen, who initiated the Marnie, is drawing 5.
And Grant was able to find Evolution Incense. That means we can see Arceus V-Star. Looks like there's also an Ultra Ball in the hand as well, but Evolution Incense will be the first card to be played. I don't think this hand is great. I don't see another supporter, so that's something Grant is going to want to be mindful of for sure when he inevitably chooses to use Starbirth this turn.
Yep, that is for sure, and that's probably what we're going to see here. That Arceus V-Star comes down. I believe the V-Star marker was flipped there as well for Grant Shen, so I think...
Yeah, not quite yet, but
no, not yet.
I think he's already thinking about what he's going to get.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. I think he just didn't flip it there. I thought it was off screen, but yeah, there is the flip, and we are going into the deck now with that Starbirth off of the Arceus V-Star to search out any 2 cards for Grant Shen to be able to develop the board state even more. I believe there was, of course, a switching card that was drawn out of the deck there, because that's very important to be able to get these energies accelerated out from your deck with that Arc V-Star.
I do want to point out something that I think was a little bit of a calculated risk from Grant. Before he played Marnie this turn, he had a fighting energy and a metal energy in the hand, but chose not to attach either of them to the Arceus so that he could power up Trinity Nova. He wanted to see what he drew off of the 5 from the Marnie. He knew he had to get an Arceus V-Star anyway, and he wants to know, and he knows he has access to the training court as well that he can use after playing the Marnie. And one of those cards he did get off of the Starbirth was indeed the Crystal Cave, and can heal this Duraludon VMAX on the bench.
That is huge. So the Crystal Cave being played toward the end of the turn there. A great position now for Grant to be in, taking the knockout, that 1 prize card off of the Raikou, and is back to Pablo on this end. We are going to start off with the Colress's Experiment. Of course, Pablo now working off of just 4 cards that were from that Marnie, but at least one of them, if not the top deck, was a Colress's Experiment. But here you go, Chip, 2 more energies from that Colress.
And this is looking pretty awkward, honestly, for Pablo. Knocking out this Arceus doesn't really help your game plan. You need to take 6 prizes to win the game. The 2 Duraludons give up 3 prizes apiece, so in a perfect world, you'd like to just knock out Duraludon and then knock out another Duraludon. Pablo does only have 1 Boss's Orders to work with. He's also got some Escape Ropes, 4 copies of that card that he could try to play this turn to force one of these VMAX Pokemon active. That would be pretty strong if he can do it.
Yeah, that's just another aspect of Duraludon. It does make your prize mapping a little awkward, and that's something you for sure had to deal with. This is a flower selecting.
Looks like it's an Escape Rope or a Raihan.
A Raihan. Ooh, Escape Rope is hitting that Lost Zone here for Pablo. Tough decisions all around, but opting to keep that Raihan in the hands. Let's see what else that can be played. Is that 3 Mirage Gates again in Pablo's hand?
It absolutely is, Shelby. 3 Mirage Gates in the hand. Does have the Boss and the Rayquaza, though. That is definitely something that is good to note.
True.
Something to think about, though, is that this Arceus, like I mentioned, doesn't really help Pablo's math, and it's also a little awkward to KO. He needs to either really heavily commit to a Rayquaza, put a lot of energies on it, or he has to go for a 2-hit KO line involving Cramorant and then maybe another Cramorant or Sableye or another Raikou, something like that.
Yep, and we do see the Cramorant being drawn out of the deck here from Pablo.
Yep, looks like it will come down. So Pablo's going for this kind of 2-hit KO route, I feel like, most likely. And Oranguru, I think, is prepping the Raihan on the top of the deck. Once again, playing around the Marnies of Grant.
Yeah, another great aspect of Oranguru, allowing you to prep your next move with that Primate Wisdom ability. And we are just going to see that Cramorant, of course, being able to attack for free with that Lost Provision Spit innocently is going to do that damage there. And we are back over onto Grant Shen's side.
Yep, looks like we were just checking a little bit of the damage, but we are all good. Grant, I don't think, has the strongest of hands. The thing about this deck, though, is once you get set up, you don't need the most. You just need to get some more energies into play, which Grant can obviously do through the Trinity Nova, which will take a knockout on the Cramorant, going down to just 4 prizes remaining and loading up this second Duraludon VMAX.
Here we go. Comfy coming into play. Of course, Air Balloon's already on there, so the pivot is there for Pablo, so we can at least see another flower selecting here, if not multiple, in the hand. Tons of Mirage Gates. Still has that Boss's Order, the Rayquaza being eyed up, but first we're going to see a flower selecting, another Escape Rope hitting the Lost Zone here for Pablo.
One thing I do want to point out, a great prize was just taken for Grant Shen. He took a Raihan off of his prizes, so he'll be able to get any 1 card out of his deck next turn, assuming Pablo does take out this Arceus V-Star.
Yep, that is definitely something you like to have for sure, Chip. But let's see. I know Pablo eyeing up that Rayquaza now. There needs to be something that has to happen on the board here for Pablo on this turn. Because you cannot be too far behind here in the match. Of course, there's a little bit leeway here and there because you only have 1 prize Pokemon for the most part, but Pablo needs to be getting these knockouts and trying to lead in the prize cards as well.
Things are definitely a little awkward here, if I'm remembering right. I mean, Pablo did prize like 4 Pokemon this game, and I think one of them was a Cramorant. So 1 has been used. It's in the discard pile. The other one is in the prize cards. Cramorant would be an awesome option here because for free, for no energy, it can knock out this active Arceus. But now Pablo's going to be forced to either play a Ordinary Rod plus a Quick Ball or load a bunch of energies onto this Rayquaza.
Yeah, well, the Raihan is going to start with at least 1 energy here, also allowing Pablo to draw out any card from the deck.
Sableye is another choice, but it does require a bit of commitment, right? You have to put an energy card on it, and while you can spread some damage to these other Duraludon on the bench after knocking out the Arceus,
is it enough?
That damage is just going to get healed pretty quickly by Crystal Cave, which we see has already almost healed all of the damage that Pablo did with Raikou earlier on in the game to this Duraludon that's on the bench now.
Yeah, and that's not even the only healing option either. Grant Shen also has the option of Hyper Potion down the line as well, and it's so easy to play in this deck because you just throw a double turbo and take it off real quick to be able to heal 120 damage, which is huge. So Pablo's damage output could be hindered by that healing potentially. So we'll see if he can do enough to pull this out.
Okay, it looks like Grant has sent up this Duraludon. Pablo is now playing an Energy Recycler, shuffling in up to 5 energy cards from his discard pile. I think I only saw 4 go back in. Could have gotten an extra one. Maybe wants to leave one down for Training Court or something like that, but
True.
does get 4 back into the deck. Plays double Mirage Gate. Now, does need different types of energy. If I'm remembering right, Amazing Burst does 80 damage for each different type of basic energy that you discard from it. So it doesn't work. You can't stack like multiple fighting energy or multiple psychic energy.
Yeah,
each one you discard has to be a different type. So he either needs to get 5 different types of energy onto his active Rayquaza or 4 different types plus that Galarian Zigzagoon.
Yep, of course, that Mirage Gate also has to be different types of energy, which works totally fine there, having 2 of them played. So that is A-okay there from Pablo, and we see 5 energy now on that Rayquaza in the active.
Yeah, so this is, as long as I'm not misremembering Rayquaza.
Let's see.
Yeah, it is going to be each type of basic energy. Yeah, so there is only going to be 4 types of basic energy discarded. That is going to be 320 damage, which is not enough for the knockout here. Yeah, we need to make sure we catch that. That is not enough for a KO.
80 damage for each type of basic energy. That's definitely needs to be clarified. We'll see. We'll make sure that gets cleared up there on the stream.
Yeah, we'll get word down. I'm pretty sure that is how it works, though. Yeah, each...
Are we doing the math wrong, Chip? What are we doing here?
No, that was 320 damage.
That is definitely correct. I'm sure we'll get that corrected real quick there. Not sure what will happen after that, though. But, yeah, this is, I think they at least need to stop play here for Grant because a lot of actions are happening.
Yeah, the longer this goes on.
A lot of things are happening here.
Pablo's taking extra prize cards that he shouldn't have seen.
Oh, my gosh. This is wild here.
Yeah, maybe, I mean, the players have more information than we do, so.
True, yes.
I'm pretty sure Pablo did 320 damage. That there should be a Duraludon in the active spot with 320 damage on it. Was not 400 damage to take the knockout.
Yeah, we didn't miss any way that anything was boosted either, I think, Chip. I don't even think there is a way.
Yeah, it does not say each. It says each type of basic energy, not each basic energy. So the wording here is extremely important.
Yeah, a lot of these cards do get mixed up. The wording's a little bit weird for players sometimes.
Yep.
I've had so many instances where I'm like, oh, wait, I thought it worked like this, but then it did not work like this. But like you said, Chip, there's so many actions that have just happened. Pablo has taken prize cards. Grant has done a plentiful amount of things on his turn as well. So we will see how the judges work this out. Oh, look at that. The judge actually has a Duraludon there.
A Duraludon on his shoulder?
On the shoulder.
I do see that.
That's so cute.
So, yeah, they need to just pull out the energy. It does say different types of energy, as long as, I mean, Pablo's from Mexico. Maybe it's a Spanish Rayquaza that he's playing, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to be an English copy of the card. So
that's true. All right, so it looks like they're checking out the energy types there that are in the discard pile. Unless we have some sort of different understanding, Chip, from the card.
Yeah, I think it's getting clarified. I think Pablo, I think he just, had an epiphany and realized what happened.
Yeah.
It looks like he noticed, oh, it's different types, not just the number of energy. It does have to be different types, and I think there was 2 fighting on the Rayquaza of those 5 energy. So
you called it, Chip. I wish that we could have stopped that from happening, honestly. It's tough when we are just casters sitting in the booth here. And also, it's very easy for players to overlook that, I think, too. I mean, you're juggling so many different types of energies. Pablo's thinking like 4 turns ahead as well. So that may have just been a small overlook on Pablo's part, but it's definitely...
So many actions have happened since the game state got a little messed up. Pablo took prize cards he should not have. Grant drew for turn, started playing a bunch of cards that he should not have.
I didn't even pay attention to like 5 actions Grant just took.
I think it's going to be reversible and fixable, but it's almost certainly going to be something that comes along with some sort of penalty for the game state being messed up a little bit. And Pablo did need to have the 5 different types of energy because let's remember the Galarian Zigzagoon was prized, right? If you have 4 different types of energy plus the Zigzagoon, that's 330. he didn't have access to it, so it did have to be the 5 different types of energy. And what's frustrating as well, too, is I think Pablo did have the 5th type of energy in his deck and chose to take the second fighting, I think because he wanted to save the Psychic. Just maybe a little bit of a misunderstanding of exactly how the card works.
Yeah,
it's not often that you need to put 5 energy on your Rayquaza. Usually you're just needing to put 4 energy on it to KO 280 HP Pokemon, right?
I know. Duraludon is so beefy for sure, but it's even worse when you miss out, when you could have done the correct action, like you said, taking that Psychic, which was available to Pablo. But things like this definitely do happen. I'm just wondering what the result will be. I guarantee you there's going to have to be some replays that happen. That
probably going to have to
judges,
consult the head judge with this as well.
That our judges overlook.
Looks like everyone's going to try to get this figured out and sorted out. While we're waiting, though, it looks like we do have some updates we can share from our other top 8 games that are currently being played in addition to this one. Nathan did take the 2-0 victory over Alex McNeil, so Nathan Ginsberg will move on to top 4 with Mew VMAX.
Mew VMAX!
Which had fallen out of favor from a lot of players coming into this weekend. Nathan showing it is still good, getting at least to the top 4. Ryan did tie it up against Makani Tran, going to a 1-1, so they're going to be going to Game 3. That Lost Box Rayquaza, of course, up against the Arceus Toolbox deck. And then Gibby is up Game 1 over Darren O'Meara. Of course, Gibby playing that Vikavolt deck up against Darren with the Reggies.
And Alex was playing Lugia as well, right?
That's right,
So does that mean
no more Lugia?
There are no more Lugia now in our rankings here, Chip. Are you surprised?
A little bit, for sure, but at the same time, when you looked at what players actually chose to play, who played what deck, it actually kind of makes sense. So many of the best players who have been playing Lugia switched to other decks this weekend. It does look like we are trying to get this game state restored. There are 6 dice on the Duraludon VMAX in the active spot now.
That's a lot of damage.
4 grants, 320 damage on it. Just 10 short of the KO, which is so unfortunate, but it is what it is. And I think, Pablo, I just saw the hand get extended, and it looks like this was going to result in a penalty. Pablo recognizing, hey, I don't think I'll be able to win after a penalty. He extends the hand, and looks like he's conceding the game. And Grant Shen, Arceus Duraludon, I think it's going to be moving on to the top 4.
Let's go! I can't say. I mean, I've been doing Arc Dura propaganda all weekend, so I'm a little bit biased here, but I'm very happy to see it succeed here. Congratulations to Grant Shen, taking Duraludon VMAX into top 4. Kind of an unfortunate way to see things play out.
Yep.
Some overlooking happening from Pablo, especially from Pablo, who is such a fan favorite, but still incredible play from both of these players.
Yeah, it's an easy thing to mistake. The wording is a